I'm the lead artist at the Young Art Museum, and today we're going to be doing some fun art. So let's get started. Today I'm going to show you how to make a drawing on Procreate and how to transfer your drawings in the real world into the digital world.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another tutorial. So today we're going to be using Procreate, and what I like to do when I use Procreate is I like to personally sketch on a piece of paper using pen or pencil. I feel more comfortable that way, but you are more than welcome to start sketching directly on Procreate. So what I did here is I put my photo of my sketch into a layer, and I created another layer on top, which is kind of like a transparent layer that you get to work on and not mess with anything below it. And I like to use the monoline tool that's under calligraphy to outline my drawing. So this is literally doing the inking of the drawing. This would be the final inking, so you could take your time with this. I find that since it's already sketched out, I don't really need to think about it too much, and you are just literally tracing over your lines and being falling to your own style and however you want this to look. So the main reason why you want to make sure that you are working on a separate layer is so that when you are done tracing, you are able to take away your sketch from below and you are left with just a nice blank canvas with only your lines on it. And now that I've done my lines, I can begin coloring. So as you can see, I have these spaces that are kind of left open. If I were to drop in my paint without closing up that little space with the same color, it would just go all over my canvas. So you want to make sure that you're closing off any unclosed loops so that you have a nice spread of color. Now you're gonna see in some of these spots, you see how you can see some white parts? That means that the threshold is too low. So what I do is I drag and I drop the paint into where I want it, but I don't let go of the screen. As you can see at the very top, there is a little bar that goes up, meaning that the threshold sensitivity is up, and it's going to fill up all those little tiny holes for you when you are filling in with color. So here I'm going to speed some things up, but it's very important to keep in mind the color theme that you're going with and making sure that everything matches in color. As you can see, I haven't added any shading yet, which is what I'm going to do next. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a different layer, and I'm going to click on the little N that is on the layer and click multiply. If you want, you can label this layer as your shading layer, or just try and keep in mind that this is where you're going to put all of your shading. When you're using multiply, it's very important to use a very, very light color. And what you're going to do is you're going to be using it as your shadow. Before you start, always make sure that you are deciding where the light source is coming from. For example, for this drawing, I am choosing that the light source is going to be on the top left corner, meaning that on the bottom right corner is where all of my shadows will be. So I'm going with kind of this lilac, almost pinkish, grayish shade to do all of my shading. And what you're going to see me do here is I'm going to have my layer where all of my drawing and my color is at and set it to my reference layer. I do that by clicking on the layer, and then that little menu I click reference. Then I make sure that I'm on the layer with my shading, and I can drag and drop the shading in a spot that is actually on a separate layer. It follows the boundaries of that other layer. That's what reference means. Now I did have to adjust the threshold so that it actually fell in there and then just fill the entire drawing with that shade. But this is useful for when you want very specific things to be shaded that are on a different layer. So you set it as your reference layer. And I use that a lot when I make drawings. Just having, a layer underneath, and I want something very specific to be filled in that specific shape. I don't have to stress about it. You don't have to stress about it. Nobody ever has to be filling in things, pixel by pixel. Always work with that reference layer if you need it to. So my favorite thing about doing the shading this way is that you can actually create the 3D-ness of this 2D subject by adding shading in specific spaces. So for faces, sometimes you do have to reference a photo to see how the shadows and light actually play on the face. So what I'm doing here is I'm going back to that layer where my drawing and color is at. I am using my ribbon tool and I'm selecting just the entire background. And then when I go back to my layer that has the shading, it still has selected the surroundings of this drawing. So I can easily use my eraser to erase those extra shading lines. So next I'm going to add a little bit of texture. I'm going to create another layer and I'm going to do my trick again of going back to the layer that has the drawing and the color. And I am selecting just the area that I want to add texture to, in this case the ice cream scoop. And I'm going to the layer where I want to add the texture, and with a charcoal drawing tool I sort of add, you know, a lighter color. I could add a little bit of a darker color, but I just wanted to add a little bit of ice cream texture to the ice cream, sort of making it shiny. And here I'm doing the same thing but with the cone. I wanted to add sort of the grid-like design that's on the cone. So I went to the layer where the color is, I selected that area with the ribbon tool, I went to my layer that I want to be my texture, and I created the texture desired. Next was the t-shirt. So since I had an idea of what I wanted the shirt to look like, I actually did the same steps, except this time I used a brush tool that kind of looks like a flowery design. And last but not least, I am adding another layer, and this is going to be my background layer. So it's always important to remember to grab that layer and drag it down below all of your other layers so that whatever you do isn't actually covering up your artwork. So I'm using kind of like a watercolorish design with some colors that repeat inside of my drawing already so that it's all cohesive and together. I'm adding a little bit of highlight, again on a separate layer, and this layer is on top of everything. So you always have to remember that whatever you want to be showing, it has to be on a layer that is above all of the other ones. I added a little bit of color to the cheeks, a little more details that I want to add, and then I finished it up. Now what's great about Procreate is that it does have the feature of saving the artwork but also saving a video of your artwork. So it's going to show you a time-lapse video of what you did. And this is a great portfolio piece. This is a great thing to have in your digital art portfolio. So not just the artwork that you made, but also a nice little time lapse. And a lot of people really love to see these in action. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you make your own artwork and you share it with the world. See you next time.